What's up, everybody? This is Jeff Moore, currently serving as the CEO of ICE. And before we jump into today's episode, let me take a moment to introduce Jane, the clinic management software and EMR that so many of us in the ICE community use and practice. Change is a normal part of clinic life. Maybe you're expanding your team, introducing new offerings, or growing your client list. As your clinic evolves, it's important to have an EMR that not only supports those changes, but also grows with you. Jane's new Balance, Practice, and Thrive pricing plans offer flexibility, allowing you to easily switch from one plan to another depending on your current and future needs. There's no long-term commitment either, just simple month-to-month payments that let you focus on running your clinic. And with every plan, you get features like one-on-one telehealth, email appointment reminders, and unlimited support. Visit jane.app/pricing to find a plan that fits your needs starting at $39 a month here in the US. And when you're ready to get started, use the code ICEPT1MO to sign up for a 1-month grace period on your new account. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. If you had to pick a workout that you feel that you could beat me the worst in, what would you choose?
I would choose a workout with high volume handstand push-ups.
Strict.
I would pick a workout with, I wouldn't include anything monostructural because I think you have me at running, rowing, and biking. So I'd probably avoid a cardio piece. It would be handstand push-ups. It would be a snatch.
Squat or power?
Probably a heavy squat snatch.
Yeah, makes sense.
Like a workout like Holly Man, 5 wall balls, 3 handstand push-ups, 1 heavy power clean, something like that.
Wait, power clean?
Yeah.
I'm a lot more comfortable with that than squat snatch.
The weight is 225, 155.
I'm not as comfortable with that. Welcome to the show, everybody. All right, dude. So we are going to chat. This is a series of 3 episodes with you, Alan. Everybody knows who you are. If they don't, they can go back and watch our previous episode where we lay out exactly what you do with the company, what you do in life, and how you got there, more importantly, kind of the focus of that episode. We're going to dive straight in now to brick by brick. So actually, why don't you go ahead? Kind of explain what the course is, who it's targeted for. Just start there.
Sure. Brick by Brick is an online course, 8-week online synchronous guided cohort where we make no assumptions about who's coming into the class as far as what their goals are with owning a business, what their desired practice setting is, whether they want a brick and mortar, a mobile practice, whether they want to be with a sports team or inside of a gym. And then we also make no assumptions on desired payment method. And so it's not a course for cash-based physical therapists. It's not a course for insurance-based physical therapists either. It's to literally give you all of the information you need to know to open up a physical therapy practice and technically a healthcare practice in general, and to give you all of the information from the very basics of how incorporation works to take you to the very advanced of technology and automation and artificial intelligence that you can leverage to run the back end of your business for you so that you can continue practicing, mentor other clinicians, grow your business, marketing, whatever, so you can focus on non-back end stuff and focus more on the front end of the clinic. And so our goal across 8 weeks is to help a person come in either having no idea of what that looks like, having some idea of what it looks like, and wanting to learn the steps to begin soon, all the way to maybe students who this is an idea far off in the future and they just want to get this information because they're not getting it in school. And then we also have a population of folks who come in who are already practicing on their own, who have started and who either know they did it the wrong way and are looking to fix it, or who are not sure if they did it the right way and are wanting to confirm that they did it the right way. Gotcha. And so we see multiple groups of people with different goals, and our aim with the course is to meet everybody where they're at and take them from either already being in practice or never starting to starting a really sustainable, profitable practice.
Okay. So, I mean, the course has been a hit. It sells out every cohort. You've been running quite a few of these now. I guess my big question for the listeners is why? As though you weren't busy enough running the back end of ICE, having your own clinic, coaching CrossFit, having the fam. What called you to build and now be running cohort after cohort of brick and brick by brick?
I think I started for a couple of reasons. I think the first is just over the years, we've heard more from folks who have taken our other courses who want to know what it looks like to start their own practice, who maybe feel like it's too insurmountable to start, and they just don't know. And they need it broken down in a way where they don't have the time or the money to maybe sit down with a one-on-one coach who's going to maybe charge them thousands of dollars to start, or they don't have the time to do it all at once. They don't have time to step away from practice or family or whatever and focus on starting a business. They need it chunked like it's set up in brick by brick, where we go through a really important step every week for 8 weeks, where you start from nowhere, and by the end of 2 months, if you've done everything in class that's a part of the homework of the class, you're ready to start your own practice. And so I think that kind of call from our students in other classes, especially our fitness athlete classes and our older adult classes, with folks who are wanting to now get in those spaces where we're talking about treating those populations, pelvic health too, of I have the subject matter expertise now, but I know nothing about business. I know nothing about opening my practice. I know nothing if I should be cash only or insurance only or a mix. And so we're answering a lot of those questions for a lot of people. I think the other reason is looking at how the profession has changed even since I've joined it, starting school 13 years ago. Of when I started, there were still a lot of private independent practices, and those have largely gone away over the past decade. We are on the way to 75% of all physical therapy practices being owned by just 8 companies. And so we're seeing kind of a consolidation across our profession, where we're seeing independent private practice, where folks have a lot more control over not only how they practice, but the volume of patients, the type of patients they see or want to see, kind of now just being dictated by someone sitting in an office building in New York City or Chicago or LA, who's probably not only not a physical therapist, but probably has nothing to do with healthcare anymore, except for the fact that they have an ownership stake in a healthcare company.
Yeah. So the thing I hear about Brick by Brick, because I teach the Vantage course, I'm always engaging with our students, and I always hear the same thing. There's no stone unturned. Like, they really feel like when they're done, like every single business question they've ever had was answered, either in the async content or during the Q&As. How are you pulling that off? Where are you pulling this knowledge from? What kind of gives you the confidence to be in the space at that level?
2 different sources. The first is experiential.
Yeah.
I don't know the perfect 100% way to do stuff, but I sure know a lot of ways to not do stuff. And so part of the class is just distilled experience. Yeah. Here's what I know from having started my own practice with no outside help, and the mistakes made along the way. And here's how you can save yourself a lot of time and money by not making those same mistakes. If you're also someone like me who wants to do it yourself, you're trying to run a lean, efficient, sustainable, profitable practice. Here are the things to do it. Here's what I think is the best way to do it. And then I think the other is just knowing that this information is out there. It's just hard to find. If you have potentially forever to sift through your state government's website, you can learn how to incorporate and what the different things mean and what applies to you. And the same thing with the tax code, and the same thing, you are welcome to read the Medicare policy manual. It's 900 pages. Or you can just look at my summary of having read it several times through now. And so knowing this information is all out there, but again, most people don't have the time to step away from everything else in their life and focus just on learning all this stuff, making sure they have it all set up, and then creating a practice based off of it. That would potentially take them maybe as long as it took me to come to this kind of same conclusion point.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. So, I mean, like you said, from week 1 through week 8, I mean, you cover every single aspect of forming a business to operating a business, including marketing aspects. I mean, every domain is in there. You've ran a bunch of cohorts. Like I said, they've all sold out. I think the drive, it's so cool to see this next generation's drive towards private practice, either in out of network or in network practice. What have you seen? Because you run these classes over and over again, you see a lot of commonalities. Like, what are, let's just say, the 3 big things that you're like, either like, oh, I'm really glad that person was here before they started, or oof, this is painful. This person's got to back up and fix it, but at least they're doing so and they're no longer vulnerable. But what are those 3 key things that you see cohort after cohort?
The first would probably be the foundational stuff, the foundational legal and financial infrastructure of the business is not performed correctly. So folks are not incorporated at all. They're not a business. They're what we call a sole proprietor. They're essentially just self-employed. So they have no legal and financial division between themselves and their business, which is a huge risk. Our profession is not inherently risky. We don't tend to injure a lot of people. We don't tend to have a concern for a lot of liability lawsuits. But that being said, when you're not separated from your business, even one lawsuit means that all of your personal finances are on the table for a lawsuit, that you yourself are now legally vulnerable, like you could potentially serve jail time versus, not that you would get away with it with being incorporated, but you would have legal protection put in because you have formed an LLC or a PLLC. So that's probably the first one.
And doing that is not a massively expensive venture. I mean, it's not an insurmountable thing to do. It's simply a matter of not knowing to check the box and do it well.
Yeah, we make a joke the first week of class because we cover incorporation, and we say, congratulations, you just got your money for buying this course returned back to you, because instead of paying a company like LegalZoom $750, who's going to turn and do the same paperwork you could do yourself, which is about $50 and takes maybe 5 minutes. Yeah. When you pay them $750, they turn and do that for you and then return the same thing back to you that you could have done yourself. Yeah. So we always start the week one meeting with that joke of like, congratulations, you're back to zero. You've made all your money back that you spent on this course. Like, let's keep building on that from here.
Yeah. And then moving on kind of down the list, you and I have talked a lot about this in the past, but people kind of getting ahead of their skis, you know, in the way they kind of, the rolling start is done poorly. Can you speak a bit, because you hear all these stories, can you speak a bit to that?
Sure. So another aspect is folks who are maybe incorporated but don't know that they qualify for certain tax exemptions with what's known as an S-Corp election, which allows you to avoid corporate income tax as a small business. And so folks are just accepting payment through whatever method they are, but they are paying a lot of taxes on that money. And they're arguably probably paying more in tax than they would if they had just remained working for somebody else. So yes, they're working for themselves, they have their own business, but they're probably making less money than when they were working for someone else, which is not the way we want to see it go when you open your own practice.
So if somebody's listening right now and they're thinking about opening one, how, maybe lead time is the right word, but like how long would you say, like, hey, don't jump the gun, don't be seeing people in your garage or your buddy's house or a gym. Take the time to do it right. How long is taking the time to do it right? Like how extensive of a process do you think?
To be really thorough and to do some market research on what do the demographics in your area look like of a lot of different stuff. How much money do your potential patients make? Mm-hmm. Are the people you want to see even living near where you want your physical location to be? What's the insurance makeup? Is it terrible? Is it great? Sometimes it's great and people don't know that because they just hear on social media over and over again to just start a cash-based practice. Yeah. But you know, we're from Michigan. Our Blue Cross pays about $175 a visit. And so if you live in Michigan and you're thinking, I'm not going to take insurance because it doesn't pay well, again, we kind of joke in the course of why are you charging $85 cash rate when you could be getting $175 with a patient who has Blue Cross insurance that doesn't require any additional paperwork, just a button click, one additional button click in your EMR to submit a claim, electronic return of your payment. That's like really low hanging fruit, and people just don't take the time to do that research. And so time frame wise, I think 3 to 6 months from going from having nothing done to feeling really confident with beginning to see your first patients in most states is not unreasonable.
Okay, yeah. While we're on the topic, speaking of insurances, and some of them paying reasonably well, certainly in some states, like when I was in Montana, whenever we go to Alaska, I'm always blown away at what those clinicians are saying. I realize the more rural, less populated states aren't a priority for the insurance companies, so I get how the system works. But overall, because you've got folks coming into your class from all across the country, what do you see? I mean, certainly if you just watch social media, you would think that we only do cash-based payment now. Those folks are definitely the loudest. What do you see? Do you think that a mix still makes sense in most places? Do you think, what are your thoughts?
It's all over the place. And that's what we talk about in the course of it depends more than you think coming into this class on where you live, which is something not a lot of people want to hear because they might come into class with one idea or the other. I'm going all insurance or I'm going all cash. Mm-hmm. And it really depends on where you live and the mix of payers in your area. It also depends on the population demographics of if you live in a town of 800 people and the median income is $45,000, what are the chances that you have really great success charging $200 a visit cash? Probably not great. But also you can't come into an area where none of your payers pay more than, $50 or $60 or $70 flat rate and expect to have a lot of success, especially in a one-on-one model with taking those insurances. It's got to be something where you sit down, and this is one of the assignments in class of like, unless you 100% know you're never going to take insurance, then your homework is to go through all the payers. There are national payers, there are state level payers, there are county level payers. Some places have city level payers, and they're all going to be different based on where you live. And if you really want to do your due diligence and your market research, sit down, find out how much they pay. Maybe more importantly, find out what additional requirements or hoops you have to jump through, because just because it pays well doesn't mean it's great. Because if it comes with 30 minutes of paperwork before that patient can even start therapy, that makes it unsustainable, even if the pay might be better than you thought it was. And we have them sit down and make a table and go, am I going to take any of these? Am I going to take all of these? Am I going to take 3 of these? And then we also really encourage folks that it's okay that changes over time. Yeah. Because we'll never see reimbursement go up. Yeah. And that's really important. And so you need to know that at some point, inevitably, you're going to have to bail on some of those. And that's okay, because when you don't bail on those is when you become like every other clinic that's currently out there that is making an unsustainable amount of money, where the only choice for that owner or that manager is to ask those staff clinicians to see more patients to make up for the lack of payment.
Yeah. Can you speak a bit to your personal experience with Health HQ? Like, where did you all start? How have you kind of worked this process?
Sure. So we started taking everything that we possibly could get a network with. And so we started the credentialing process in the summer of 2018. And we went in network with 19 insurances.
If they would let you, you would go.
If they were open and we could do the enrollment, we would do it.
Okay.
And so we started taking over 19 different insurances.
Oh, wow.
All the national payers, United, Aetna, Cigna, that sort of stuff. We have some state level payers. Every state has a Blue Cross association. We have some county level payers and some payers that are unique just to Michigan. And so if we could get in network with them, we would. We wanted to reach as many people as possible, but we also just wanted to see what that would look like, how the financials on that would shake out.
Yeah. And then from that point over a few year period, what have you wound up doing over the past few years?
We very quickly realized it is unsustainable to take all those payers, because most of those payers were paying at a rate that was below what we wanted to pay our therapists. And almost all of them had paperwork requirements where we either had to consider hiring somebody to do that, which means we'd have to further reduce pay or increase volume, neither of which we wanted to compromise on, or we would have to drop those payers. And so over 2018 through 2021, we pared down to just 3 payers.
Okay.
We take our state Blue Cross. We take Medicare, pure Medicare, straight Medicare, traditional Medicare, however you want to call it. We take our state's Blue Cross managed Medicare plan, and then we take TRICARE, which is essentially the same as taking Medicare.
Okay.
And every other insurance is out of network now.
Gotcha. I think one of the things that people don't do, and it probably comes back to your point of in that first few months deciding who you are, and what you're trying to do, is they don't know what that number is. They don't know what that break-even number is of the way we want to pay our people, what we're trying to do, the volume that we're comfortable with, the way they have to pay this number or they have to go. If you don't have that number, you just wind up, like you said, at the end of the month trying to see more and more people to make things work, but you're constantly on that wheel. You mentioned Medicare. I don't want to make this a Medicare episode, but whenever the cash-based world in out-of-network world sort of collides with the in-network, more traditional model, this big, unique conversation of Medicare, because it's so different. Like, the third-party payers kind of have a way they're operating, and then cash-based, I don't want to call it simple, but in some ways it is. And then there's Medicare in between, because we have this very bizarre law that physical therapists can't legally, at least not in a straightforward manner, in any opt-out, not take Medicare, charge them cash for covered services. So we're all pretty familiar with that. Can you give a 3 to 5 minute, and I know that maybe big rock stuff, but the questions that are on people's minds of, well, can I do it? I heard they just have to sign a form and then I'm good to go. Could you give some high level?
Sure. 3 to 5 minutes is a lot to go, but we'll
Sure.
try. Start the timer. So it is tough, because I think big picture, we have to recognize 70% of the population is Medicare eligible. Yeah. And so almost every adult is carrying some form of Medicare insurance, and we can't just overlook that. You asked me at the beginning of the episode the top 3 things that people get wrong. The first is not setting up the scaffolding correctly. Yeah. The second is taking cash from everybody without knowing if you can or can't, and that's where a lot of people run into trouble because, as you said, physical therapists are one of the few healthcare providers that cannot opt out of Medicare, which means they cannot take cash and not perform a specific reimbursement process. You are either opted in to Medicare, where you directly bill Medicare and Medicare pays you directly, or you go through what's called the non-participating provider route, where you still have a Medicare account, but where you provide the patient with all the information they need to get reimbursed by Medicare, which means at the end of each visit, you need to give them a claim form. And we talk in the course about how most modern EMRs will provide that for you. And you need to give a claim summary form, what's called a 1490S form, which basically summarizes all the claims. So when that patient mails it into Medicare, Medicare knows to pay that patient. Okay. And so you can take cash from Medicare patients, but there are some stipulations which can be difficult, again, based on where you live, because that payment is only what's called Medicare allowable, what they would pay you as if you are a participating provider, which may mean Medicare would give you $110, even though your cash rate is $150. You can't charge $150. Gotcha. You can only charge what the patient will be reimbursed. Some folks also mess up that process, not recognizing that the patient gets reimbursed, and so they don't take the cash payment from the patient, and so the patient hasn't paid for therapy, and then the patient gets a giant reimbursement check for potentially thousands of dollars, which sometimes they don't use to pay their physical therapy. Yeah, it doesn't make its way to the physical therapy clinic. So we have that issue. Yeah. And the other issue is, whether you like it or not, as a healthcare provider, you are opted into Medicare law, which is federal law. And so the penalties are very, very severe. And out of all the different organizations that deal with health insurance, commercial or public, Medicare is probably the one, because its tax dollars are the most likely to do things like secret shopper, where they're going to send in fake patients. They have whistleblower programs. They have whistleblower programs where they give a percentage of the money they get back from the clinic doing it wrong to the person that reported them, which is usually a patient. Yeah. And so they incentivize people looking for people not doing it the right way. And so that second group of people who come in are often people taking cash from everybody, including Medicare patients, assuming that if I don't go and network with Medicare, I'm clear to take cash, which could not be further from the truth. Yeah. The penalty for doing that is $11,000. It's 3 times whatever you charge that patient. So if you charge them $100, it's $300. And it usually comes with some sort of penalty related to house arrest, suspension of your license, and that's every visit that you do. And so even in one patient's plan of care, you have potentially racked up tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars of fines, potential jail time, loss of your license for years or forever. And a lot of folks in class say, is that ever going to happen? And it's kind of back to the conversation of part of the class is learning about risk management and what are the pieces of low-hanging fruit we can grab that are going to completely eliminate that risk or reduce it to almost zero. And one of them is, unless you're going to do this process, you should probably not interact with Medicare patients unless you plan to either bill it directly as a participating provider or go through the paperwork process to make sure that patient gets properly reimbursed.
Yeah, right on. Let's finish off number 2, which is taking cash from the wrong people, as far as a big mistake. We see this, I think, more commonly than we even want to admit. People are tied into a group policy. I mean, they're in a clinic where they've got a safe, stable job, and they're trying to build their side hustle. And you see some kind of, I hate the word sketchy, but you see some fundamentally mismanaged decision making regarding payment. Can you speak a bit to what you are or aren't allowed to do when you are tied into that?
Sure. So we talked about Medicare, which we would call a public health insurance. All of the private commercial health insurances have similar things where, depending on the insurance, you either have a contract with them on an individual level, what's called a facility level, which would be the clinic, or both. And so any insurance payer where you have an individual agreement, that is tied to you as the healthcare provider, which means even if you don't remember signing it, maybe your first day at that job, you just got handed a stack of paperwork and you signed it all. Somewhere in there, you were signing that insurance contract. And that means you have agreed to bill that person's insurance in lieu of taking a cash payment. You have agreed to say, I will deal with sending this claim to the insurance company and dealing with whatever I get paid back or denials or whatever part of that process, but I am agreeing to accept that in lieu of you paying me directly. And you have a contract with that company. And while they don't pursue as much as the federal government does, the risks are just as high, because if you are working there full time and maybe you are treating patients out of a gym or going to patients' home, kind of a side hustle type operation, if you're taking cash from those patients and they carry that insurance, you have technically signed a contract that says you won't do that. And while they're probably not going to send you to jail and you're not going to get this giant fine or your license suspended, what's more likely to happen is the clinic that you work for 9 to 5 could potentially have their contract terminated, which affects that clinic, but also everybody who works there. And that can mean big trouble. And again, a lot like Medicare, the safest thing to do is if you're not sure, you probably shouldn't take cash from them.
Got it. Good. So that covers kind of Medicare, and it covers when you're tied into an in-network policy. So number one, lay the scaffolding, do the market research, get your legals in order, get yourself protected, just check the boxes. You're going to be in this job for decades, right? Like, do it right, get off the ground properly. Number two is know who you can and can't take cash from. Medicare is, a tough one because they monitor this stuff. And you hear stories all the time. Like we heard one 2 weeks ago, I think it was in Hawaii, but it's like these clinics are getting busted Medicare keeps an eye on this stuff. And then the issue probably more common, like you said, maybe not quite as risky, and risk management matters, but doing things on the side when you're tied into a policy at your in-network clinic. So I think that's great food for thought. I know the last one, because it's your favorite topic. It's all of our worst topics ever for most people, certainly most physios, and that is technology. That is the inability, the unwillingness. Maybe it's a combination of those factors, but I know that you harp on this a lot. You've got a lot of soapboxes, but speak a bit to the importance of technology in operating a practice.
We're tough in class that every single week we talk about your discomfort with technology will make you less competitive than somebody who is. And that's just the fact of the matter. Yeah. Oh, we see a lot of people who have no patients yet have hired a full administrative staff. And so they are paying people salaries with very little revenue. Yeah. And they are paying people salaries to do things that have been replaced sometimes a long time ago by technology, sometimes completely automated technology or technology that's run by artificial intelligence now. And so you have a person performing medical billing by hand entering codes into a computer when that's an automated process now. A modern software is going to do your medical billing for you, where maybe you spend 5 minutes a day doing billing. We know that 77% of people want to do their own scheduling for things like appointment in a self-service manner. Yet we see one of the very first things people do is hire a full-time front desk person to answer the phone that in this day and age is going to ring, but not as much as it used to, especially if patients have an option to book their own appointment online or via a text message service or something like that. And then hiring folks to do things like bookkeeping, which when you're first beginning, is not a lot of bookkeeping because you're not making a lot of money and you're not spending a lot of money. And so people go all in with a big administrative burden, which just makes becoming profitable that much harder, especially when you step back and say, these people are doing good work. They're not working, but also all of this could be done by computer software. Yeah. And so we come at it from the angle of the more willing you are to learn how to leverage technology, you can run your own website. You can make your own social media posts, especially when you first start. You can do your own billing. You can do your own scheduling. And everything you're willing to do with technology is one less person you have to hire. And we'll probably never see artificial intelligence robots be physical therapists. You'll never probably walk into a clinic and work with a bunch of robots. Yeah. But you will walk into a clinic that is using automation and artificial intelligence to run really lean, which means at the end of the day, they're going to be more competitive because they have more money to pay their staff. They have more money for equipment. They have the ability, because they don't need to pay all of those salaries out, having more money for the staff, yes, but they also can ask those staff to work less. And so the staff working there are making more, working less than the average physical therapist. We're really proud at Health HQ that we're approaching twice the national average for pay on a 30-hour work week with benefits. Yeah. And so that's what I see is the sum game of leveraging technology to take over a lot of positions that have previously been run by a human being.
Mm-hmm. I love that quote because it hits so hard of you're probably not likely going to be replaced by a robot, by artificial intelligence. You're likely, though, to get beat by someone who's really good at utilizing artificial intelligence. And I think if we don't let that hit us between the eyes, we're vulnerable.
And I think, 10 or 20 years ago, the argument was, well, my patients aren't comfortable with that. They don't understand this. But now 96% of Americans have a high-speed internet-connected smartphone. Go to any diner in America and everybody's on their phone, regardless of their age demographic. We can't fall back on the excuse of, my patients are so old, they don't know how to use a computer or a phone. That's just not true anymore. That might have been true 20 or 30 years ago, but it's not true in this day and age. Yep. And what we need to recognize, it's now our discomfort with technology that is limiting us from being willing to learn how to leverage it better.
Yeah. How do you build that into the course? Do you have a week on technology, or do you, as you're going through the different components, are you showing where you can leverage technology along the way? How's it constructed?
Both.
Okay.
We start the class pretty aggressive. Our very first week, we asked the class to discuss the pros and cons of hiring all those administrative staff positions and just getting people's ideas on what they already think. And then we kind of talk about what you just said. You'll probably never be replaced by a robot as a healthcare provider, but you will be outcompeted to the point where you will eventually throw in the towel, because the therapists working at the other clinic are making more, working less. They're happier with their job, so the attrition is less. The patients are happier because they're getting all the self-service tools they want. They can click a button to schedule an appointment or reschedule an appointment. They can click a button to get their bill, whatever. Everybody is happier at that other clinic, and they're not as happy, and they're not making as much money at your clinic. And eventually, you will, over time, become less competitive. Your practice will become less sustainable, and you will probably quit earlier than you wanted to at some point.
Yeah. My favorite book is Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And at one point in the book, it's a classic, display of two people, one who's very into mechanical maintenance and one not so much. And there's a really great scene where the former says to the latter, the challenge is, where do you start? When someone's totally ignorant, it's really hard to teach a motorcycle engine. Where do you start? What's the first thing you teach? I guess that's what I would ask you right now. Do you have it for people who are sitting there but I hate it? Any low-hanging fruit or things that you would recommend to get going on automating or using tech?
And that's the second part we talk about in the course. In the back end of the course, week 7 and 8, we talk about all the back end stuff, so to speak, the quote unquote stuff. And some of that stuff is physical. A lot of people want to know how to get equipment on the cheap and treatment tables and that sort of stuff. But it's also software of, you can set up a texting service for free through Google Voice. It's HIPAA compliant. It forwards to your phone. It allows patients to text the clinic through a phone number on your website. That's a super low-hanging fruit. That doesn't really require much technological knowledge from you. We talk about not just getting any old EMR or thinking, I'm going to run this super lean and do my notes on Google Docs or something, but to look at up-and-coming software that we would not even call an EMR, something called an entrepreneurial operating system, an EOS, which contains, yes, your EMR, but also can do your billing and do your billing in an almost automated fashion to where, again, you don't have to know computer code. You just have to know a couple of buttons to click at the end of the day, where it's going to do things like automate patient reminders, text them, call them about their appointment. It's going to text them happy birthday. It's going to automate your customer relationship management, where after whatever visits you set, it's going to text that patient and ask them how it's going. It's going to ask them to leave a Google review. It's going to make it so simple on the patient as well to not know a lot of technology, where all they have to do is text that number back, the review. It's going to write the Google review for them, and all they have to do is tap a button to authorize that it's going to publish under their Google account to your Google review page. Yeah. So your SEO authority goes up. You rank higher when people search for physical therapy. You get more business. And at the end of the day, the more you trust the software and use the correct software, the more work it does for you, again, without really needing to be really techie and nerdy about it. There's also a lot of free resources now. There are so many Coursera and things like that, where if you don't understand how to do basic accounting in a spreadsheet, or you don't know how to do things like maybe automated marketing emails or something like that, where in a couple of hours, go to the coffee shop on a Saturday morning, you can teach yourself to do a very integral task of your business using the technology that you probably already have at your fingertips.
I love that. So rehashing the three things, watching all these folks go in and try to start or improve an existing business. Number one, do the prep work. Number two, know where you can take cash. That's getting really important the more it's talked about. And number three, if you're not using technology, somebody else is, and you're a sitting duck at some point. Other people are doing more with less, and like you said, they've got people who are working a bit less, making a bit more, and you can't outcompete that. We know the challenge of retention, and in that setup, you're never going to win. So I think that's absolute gold for anybody listening to this. I want to finish on a little bit of a different note, and that is, there's so much hype out there over marketing and cash-based stuff. Some folks say almost acting as though it's the easy button and that, patients just pour in. And I've heard you speak in a bunch of different ways about it really still comes down to the relationships and the fundamentals of small business. I guess you must hear this in every cohort. So I'm just kind of curious, if you could soapbox it for a minute, what your thoughts are on that topic.
We have a lot of folks who come into the class who have maybe not done a course like ours related to starting their business, but have maybe done one or several marketing courses, some sort of mentorship or mastermind program. And recognizing that is not important until you have the foundations of your business in place. It doesn't matter how many patients you reach if you don't have the ability to follow up with those people and contact them back in a timely fashion to get them on your schedule or answer the questions they have about their home exercise program or whatever. And so starting with and front loading a bunch of marketing things is really putting the cart before the horse. I think we see now in this day and age the idea that we no longer need to work with primary care physicians or other referral sources in our town too. That's not true. There are a lot of folks in your town who think like you do, who think we can do healthcare better, who think it looks like starting with a fitness forward approach and being focused on lifestyle, and they just don't know that you exist yet. And so the idea that you can just sit at home on your computer and market your clinic with specially designed cold call sheets or pre-written Instagram captions, will that stuff get you patients? For sure. But I would argue it will not get you as many patients as working with those providers, is going into the areas where the patients you want to see are at. Going in, if you want to treat CrossFit athletes, you should probably be in the CrossFit gym. If you want to treat runners, you should probably be at Wednesday Night Run Club. And forming those relationships not only helps you get those patients in the clinic, but continuing those relationships during and after that plan of care, continuing to go to the run club, continuing to go to the CrossFit gym, continuing to work with the high school football team, whatever. Keeping those relationships going continues to bring not only those patients back, but also their grandma or their kids or their brother or someone else in that same thing. And we've kind of come to this conclusion, and I don't know how we got here, that digital marketing is superior and that you can just hang out on your computer and market your schedule full, and you don't need to talk to anybody anymore. You don't need to go do these things, and that word of mouth marketing is dead. And that's simply not true, because while the cost to get a patient the first time might look the same, whether it's money spent on an Instagram ad or time spent at running club, keeping that person coming back and getting those word of mouth referrals for friends and family is way cheaper than just continuing to try to get new people via those digital marketing funnels.
It's always felt to me, we've always said get good and you'll get busy, right? It just happens. You don't see it not happen anywhere. The hype over marketing has always felt to me like trying to build your house on like an ever eroding block of sand. Like, you're always having to fill back in to keep this thing stable. It always costs money. Whereas if you over deliver for the human and they're blown away and you, like you said, went and met them at club and you've got a legitimate relationship, every time Susan tells Todd that costed you $0.99. Like if you are truly excellent and they go out and market for you, right? That house is built on a freaking slab of rock, because you're not paying a thing and you're never having to hustle. And once you build it, you only build it once. You don't have to build it again because these people are out there doing the marketing for you. And so I think I'm not against marketing, but I really do think that, a little bit of marketing and a whole lot of excellence is a much more sustainable route.
And you can prove that to yourself with data. If you're doing digital marketing and you're actually tracking that data, you'll know that over time, the cost per click and the cost per conversion of the digital space has only ever increased. It's never gone down. And it's only ever going to increase because you're going to have to spend more and more money to sift through this wide net of people, so to speak, to find the folks who want to come see you for physical therapy. where word of mouth gets continually cheaper because the people you've already delivered good outcomes to continually tell other people about you, which costs you nothing.
Yeah.
And over time, whatever your initial investment, time or money to get that first person continues to decrease as they tell more and more and more and more people about you.
Yeah. And I never want to be anti-marketing. I love marketing. I love selling stuff in general. But I do think the sustainable route is excellence. And a little bit of marketing can sure help to speed that along. So I love kind of reframing that conversation for folks. So I guess, Alan, in closing, you've done this, like I said, for a few years now. You've watched so many people go through and launch, and now you've been able to follow them up, and see how things are going, et cetera. Who should take this course? Who is it appropriate for? Who's your real target?
My target is anybody that is looking to do things a different way.
Okay.
Because I think I've been surprised over the years about the people who are already in practice. And it's humbling to have those people come into class who are already in practice and are running maybe an okay practice as far as sustainability goes and profit, but who are looking to see, can I do things a different way? Mm-hmm. And there's something for everybody. Of those folks are maybe those word of mouth people who are at the run club or at the CrossFit gym, but maybe they're not the ones focused on their search engine optimization. We find a lot of those folks maybe don't even have a website. They just have an online booking portal through their EMR. Yeah. And so they're not able to build SEO authority. So when people search for physical therapy near me or knee pain exercises, they don't get grabbed because they don't even have a website in the first place. They just have this one page digital landing page. And so there's something for the person who's thinking, I have no idea what this even looks like, all the way to the person who's thinking, is there a way to make my current business even better than it is, to grab more patients, increase my profit, that sort of thing.
Nice. And this class runs every 8 to 12 weeks, several times a year.
Yep, it's 8 weeks long. It's synchronous, so we have a weekly meeting, some weekly homework. Mm-hmm. I love that our homework is based on the steps you need to start your business. Yeah. It's not fluff. It's not just random discussion posts or something like that. It's here's how to do this thing. You need to do this thing, and if you skip this step, you can't do next week's homework or the week after, so on and so forth. So it's building you towards opening your practice. And then we usually take a 2 to 4 week break between cohorts, and then every year we kind of shut down over the holidays and look at what's changed. Not a lot of stuff changes in this space. There's not a lot of peer-reviewed research on running a physical therapy practice, but some of the legalities change, some of the laws and states change, some of the stuff with insurance companies and Medicare and stuff changes. And so we go through and do our due diligence to make sure we're as up-to-date as possible before we fire it back up for the new year.
Love that. Well, crew, you heard who should be in there. You heard what's in there. If that's for you, it's at ptonice.com. Alan, thank you so much.
Thank you.